Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a historic day in the history of Myanmar, and the big event, that the general election of 2015. All the people have been expecting and looking forward to this day, and now we are here. And actually, now's the time the vote counting has started. The voting process itself is over in almost all the voting stations in the country. The rule is that the voting process starts 6 a.m. in the morning, and the voting station has to close down by 4 p.m. to start the vote counting. So now's the time the vote counting has already started. But looking back at the whole day, we do see some significant things, like the voters' turnout. Here in Yangon and in elsewhere in the country, according to the news stories that are streaming into this office, we do see a relatively high turnout. There are a few voting stations where the turnout may be lower than 50, but then majority of the station claims that voter turnout is somewhere around 60, 70, 80. There are some significantly high turnout, as high as 95, 100% in some areas. So the voter turnout itself is quite encouraging. And then the other encouraging thing is about the situation in all these stations. We do see some abnormalities in some places, like a truckload of people come in to vote, to attempt to vote in a station in Mandalay, etc. But then that seems to be very few and far between. And normally the whole country, according to all these news reports, is a peaceful voting process, which ended at 4 p.m. So that's quite an encouraging thing, because we've been experiencing there may be some violence, some problems, etc. Of course, there have been some problems, but very few problems. And generally, we can say that the voting process, the 2015 November 8 voting process, is ended peacefully in general. So let me start with you, Sia.
Yeah.
So you've been watching the stories quite closely, and then they had this kind of like sometimes contrasting stories coming in from different areas. So let's talk about this kind of some abnormalities here and there.
Yeah, I think overall the voting took place quite peacefully and quite calm amongst the people. But there was an incident, one case where supposed to be a hand grenade was found in an area in Yangon, and there was an investigation. I don't know what was the result of outcome of the investigation.
No explosion.
Yeah, there was no explosion.
Unexploded grenade.
There was an investigation only on that. But rather, apart from that, I think especially whatever we are getting from the urban areas, the election, the voting took place quite peacefully. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, how do you see this process? Because you've been involved in this program of Mizzima Dialogue, Mizzima News Analysis, and we've been talking about different scenarios for this day or way back. And then what do you see, our expectation and the reality? Is there any contrast? What's your take?
Well, to begin with, the hand grenade that was found, it turned out to be a toy that was placed in the bin. It wasn't placed there to cause fear or anything. Actually, it was around the corner from my house, which was a bit worrying to begin with. But besides that, I mean, I guess my perception of what would happen is it would be peaceful, it would be fair, and there wouldn't be anything quite dramatic. But that's coming from somebody who wasn't. Well, the last general elections in 2010, there was fighting on the Thai-Myanmar border. But I never perceived that anything like that would happen. I feel as though a lot of people that I've spoken to don't want there to be any conflict. They don't want there to be any hindrances involved. Everybody just wants a peaceful transitional period. And so with that, I feel as though that kind of outweighs what some people might try to do in more rural areas. Just the general want and need for change is keeping a lot of people at bay and not wanting any violence.
Yeah, okay. I think so far we have not had any news of any attack or any violent incident, even in the remote areas, even including in the areas where the conflicts are still there. in either in Kachin or in Shan State. So I think with from that perspective, I think the election took place quite peacefully. The question is now the countings have begun, and
What's going to happen?
And everyone is waiting, and what will be the either jubilance celebrations or and those who got defeated, what will happen next? That is the question. I think we'll have to wait.
Yeah,
and
I
see.
think that is a big question. But before we go ahead with that, taking a question about the vote counting and the celebration of the victors, etc., I think we would like to. I would like to take a look back at the whole day.
Yeah.
It turned out that it's generally peaceful. That's it.
Yeah.
So, is it because the people are so careful about this project? They have big concern that they themselves took care of themselves in their own community. That okay, let's make it a peaceful process, etc., etc. But then, or is that because of two major factors which are quite different from other elections like in 2010 or 12 or 1990? Two things. One thing is about, again, the observers. There are nearly 1,000 international observers all over the country and nearly 10,000 domestic local observers all over the country. So is that a contributing fact to the peaceful? Because the people know, and the people who may come up with some nasty idea knows that, hey, people are watching us. And then because the other factor is, again, the social media. The phones are everywhere, almost everywhere in the country, and then people are communicating with each other, and then news from, let's say, some small town 500 miles from Yangon, we could receive it in a few minutes. So are these the contributing factors for the peaceful process?
I think, in my opinion, one thing which I'm quite convinced is that almost everyone, all the stakeholders, the people including, everyone wants this election to take place. That is one. And this election to take place successfully.
Yep.
Despite the whatever it is, there is a competitive, competition among the political parties and candidates. But everyone, the people want this election to take place successfully. And I'm
Peacefully.
really, I as a Burmese citizen, Myanmar citizen, I'm proud of this. And I think we should congratulate the people in the country, the people
All the
of the
voters.
Myanmar, all voters. They behave very well, and they come, and they know that there is still uncertainty after this period, because there can be a long haul of the period where you don't know who will be forming the next government. But still, I think the people want this election to take place. The people are quite determined that this everything is passed through quite calm and successfully. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're very right in saying that people want it to be successful. And with the uncertainty, there is a lot of uncertainty. This morning I was going to a polling station where the Carter Center were holding a press conference. And on my way there, a man stopped me, and just as I was walking in, he said to me, he goes, "Why are all you observers in one place? Shouldn't you be out in many places?" And then I had to explain to him why we're there. But the uncertainty of what could happen is still there, but people are still very confident that something could happen. So I think you're right in saying that the observers do play a very integral part in almost giving voters and citizens confidence to be able to go and vote, and the safety, and that their voice will actually be heard when it comes to the vote. But with social media, I find it has a very troubled relationship with Myanmar. So on one hand, yes, social media has done a lot of good, and it is a good way for people to be able to express, or when they see something they can report it initially. But a lot of people use social media, for more negative things.
Very negative way, yeah.
Yeah, not just in negative ways, but some things may not be portrayed the correct way, and then people take the one side, and therefore this entire false rumor, if you will, is spread, and then it certainly becomes news.
With the social media, one thing that I thought, and I was expecting the slowdown of the internet speed today particularly. so far, for me, it didn't happen.
The connection is okay.
It was just as normal. Of course, it was not that really good or better than the any other days. It is still
quite
normal,
normal.
and we could really use internet and social media. And our reporters are sending their video and
Stories.
photos through Facebook. So I think that way, I think we pass it through. We pass this through quite successfully.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I like to say, and then this is contributed to your remark, is that okay, this is the people and the public and the voters that they are the winners. They make it happen.
Yes.
They make it happen peacefully. They will behave very well, and then they know that there is this uncertainty afterwards, and even then they make it happen. That's it.
Yeah.
So I think we should congratulate the voters first.
Yeah, and also I think there is those statements, the statements coming out from the either president or commander-in-chief or the candidates, quite dignified so far. I mean, let's wait and see what will happen next if some of them get defeated in the pool. But still, they are quite dignified, and they will accept even if NLD wins, they will accept the result. So far, I think that is what this country, in my opinion, one good positive thing that we can get out of this is, I think, yes, we have problems and issues, and we have many challenges ahead as well, but I think there is a kind of a common wish and desire that no, we have to work it out. So I think that is what I have seen today. That is my observation for today.
Yeah, again I will have to simply agree with you that in terms of the kind of stakeholders, the opposition party, the ruling party, and even the military, majority of the leaders, especially Udain Singh, the president, Senior General Mayor Online, the Commander-in-Chief, and Aung San Suu Kyi, the leader of the opposition, the NLD, all of them came up with very positive, encouraging remarks. The president said, okay, I'll be okay with any outcomes, whether we win or not, that's okay. And even the Commander-in-Chief said, yeah, if the people make a choice, we'll go by it. And Aung San Suu Kyi herself said, okay, we are hoping for the best and we're prepared for the worst. So which are like the dignified statement from all these stakeholders, all the leaders of these three major groups. We have three major stakeholders, the opposition party, the ruling party, and the military. So all the leaders from all these big three stakeholder groups come up with very, I have to say, some say excellent remarks. So I think that helps to a certain extent. And by the time 4 p.m. and now we've seen on these television screen and on the web and on our Facebook accounts that the vote counting started. Again, I'm observing that it looks quite transparent and quite okay. So because there were these color baskets for different candidates, and these ballot boxes they open in front of the each candidate in any township can send at least one representative to each voting station. So the stakeholder, they have their representative watching the vote counting process, they are there, and then normally 10 representatives from these voters, they can watch very closely right inside the voting station. So it looks like, again, the vote counting seemed to be quite okay and it's going quite calmly. And then it's in some places, especially in Lansho, where the vice president was contesting, is contesting there, Simon Khan, the vice president from Shan State. He is contesting in that constituency, and they are, of course, the NLD candidates and a couple of others ethnic candidates too. The vote count is quite transparent. They show this, okay, here Simon Khan wins, okay, here U Tin Shui wins, and then they put all these little counting on the white votes.
Yeah.
So it's quite transparent, and people are watching. So it looks like the voting process is okay, it's done peacefully, and then the vote counting is quite exciting, but then looks like the vote counting will go ahead quite calmly. And what we are looking forward to is that there will be two kinds of announcement of who's the winner in this constituency, that constituency, or this township, that township. I think there will be two levels at least. One, which is for the lower house seats, the lower house, we call them Chidiluto, there will be 330 seats are being contested, and those could, the result may come out later in this evening, or maybe by 8 p.m., 10 p.m. We may know that who's the winner in, let's say, Komu or Lansho or Mandalay, etc. So that may come up tonight. So we were anxiously looking forward to those results. That may come not from the UEC itself, the Election Commission, but from the party themselves. The party may claim that, okay, we went in this township, we went in that township, but that need to be confirmed by the UEC. And then UEC later in the day come up with announcement saying that starting from 9 a.m. tomorrow, they will come up with these official statement, announcement of the winners every 3 hours. And every evening, starting from tomorrow until 15th, there will be press conference at 4 p.m. every day. So I think which is a nice process. So that, because we only have to wait a few days to see who will come out as the winner of these elections. So I think it's, again, I want to say that this is, we've been all the journalists and all these observers have been criticizing the UEC, the Union Election Commission, that you're not really competent, you did it intentionally, etc., etc. But then up to this one, they are functioning quite normally. And then in the vote counting process, it looks like there may be some cheating somewhere.
Of course, there are reports today.
There are some attempt to vote
and also
people who are out of the constituency, etc. But apart from that, they are functioning quite well.
And we have started getting the results here. Very interesting. I mean, I just want to share with you that one which is not unexpected. In Komu constituency, NLD, Daw San Suu Kyi is leading when
in the lower house seats.
In the lower, for the lower house seats, and she is leading as far as the advance votes are counted. But she is leading. It's not done yet. Of course, that is not unexpected. But in Lashu, where the current the vice president is contesting, he is trailing. He is trailing against the NLD candidate. So, of course, there is no exact result, but that is the trend. Whatever the votes are already counted. So, I think we will start getting those results coming in, and maybe some results maybe that we may
know some result, final result by later in this evening, maybe like 9 p.m. We may know at least a few townships who's the winner.
The most interesting thing, I guess there's two stages to a democratic process. Obviously, first is voting and allowing all citizens within the country to vote freely and fairly, and also citizens of the country outside the country to have their voice and their opinion heard. The second is the counting of votes. So it's if votes are not counted correctly or properly or in a secret manner, then there's room for manipulation. And that's like on the outside when you go to vote, people can witness these situations. But at the end of the day, when votes are being counted, people are excluded. It becomes very small, and there's only a certain allowed group of people. Like back in Australia, I partook in assisting people to vote and counting votes one year, and it's obviously in Australia there's a lot more confidence within our electoral system. There's a different aspect to it that's very a lot of people don't have confidence in. But when it comes to voting, there is one official from the Australian Electoral Commission, and then the rest are volunteers who volunteer their time to come and collect. And I mean, in that situation, everybody does it in a professional manner where they lay out the votes. And I think this 2015 vote will give a lot of people confidence for the future, especially in the UEC, which needs it. As the UEC have had their troubles, yes, and I'm sure all their processes and methods can be argued against. Like the slips for voting have been seen as unnecessary by some observers. But even though that you don't need these slips, you can still vote. I think that there's small minor flaws, but as long as everything takes off, and as you said, the Vice President Lansho is trailing.
Yeah.
I think that goes to show a lot about confidence in this election, and most importantly, the United Union Election Commission.
Yeah. Sarah, I'm quite interested in because you were here in 2010, unlike me, I was outside the country. So, what was happening around like this time in 2010? Well, because that time NLD didn't participate in the elections. So are these the ruling party, current ruling party, those who started getting the winning results, are they already celebrating, or the people were quite? What was the? Can you tell us?
What happened in 2010 is of course quite different from what's happening now.
Yeah.
There were only one big party, the ruling party, the USDP. That's it.
Yeah.
Of course, there are some, let's say, smaller opposition parties like the NDF, the National Democratic Front, and other smaller parties, and of course the ethnic parties. But then what happened was that in those days, like in 2010, the advance voting was a big issue and a big problem. So it wasn't. Now taking a look at what's going on today, now you see that the advance votes are there in the station, placed there, and then when the vote counting starts, they will start counting the advance vote and the current votes, the votes that are voted today in the polling station, and then counting them simultaneously. Okay, in those days, the advance vote counting start the next day. So that was a big problem. For example, in some townships, the NDF people claim that because there were some of the people, especially from the party themselves and the reporters and journalists who are watching individual voting stations and coming with their own numbers, like, okay, we're adding up station 1, station 2, station 5, station 9, okay, NDF wins. Oh, we got it. And then they go to another community and start counting. And by night time, like maybe 8, 9, somebody started claiming, okay, the NDF, we win in this township for the lower house seat, etc. And by the next day, sorry, we haven't counted the advance vote. And the winner become the loser. That happened in 2010. Of course, there was no major opposition. The NLD boycotted that 2010 election. So they stayed away from the process. And then maybe because of that, there were less interest in the 2010 election than the one that we are having today. So there's the lack of major contender, major opposition in that election, and the voting, the vote counting itself and the advance vote, the big problem. Now, the advance vote is no longer a big issue. It's quite transparent. You can come up with 2,000 more votes the next day. So it's going to happen today, tonight, counting, that's it. So I think that's the big difference. But then again, comparing to what happened in 2012, like the by-elections for 43 seats, the Aung San Suu Kyi was contesting for the very first time, and she got elected, of course. And then at that point, it was quite interesting. I think the same thing would happen tonight. Like the party started announcing the winner first, and then the election comes much later, proving that yes, she wins there, he wins there, etc. So I think that's pretty much identical to what's going to happen tonight. The result from the party will come first, and the election comes because they got to make sure that everything is there. Let's say for the NLD in Komu, because we are now seeing that the lady is leading, meaning that they start counting in individual voting station. Let's say there may be 20 stations. And by counting after 13 stations, she's leading. So she's pretty much sure that she wins. Or by counting all the 20 stations, she wins. But that may not be approved by the UEC right away. They will come or maybe tomorrow. So I think maybe by midday tomorrow, there will be a lot of confirmation for the lower house seats. So I think that's the difference between 2010 and 2015. So the voting process is much more transparent nowadays, today, than in 2010.
But there is, I think, one of the differences between 2010 and 2015 is this election. I think there is a big issue of those who are disenfranchised or who do not have, who could not vote.
Yep.
Even though they are eligible to vote. So I think that still, I think, will be a big issue. We don't know how much that will have an impact on the actual results and also on the question of inclusiveness of the election. But still, this looks like this an issue, quite big issue of those who are eligible but who couldn't vote.
Yeah, I think there are different issues in different elections. Like by 2012, it was not the advance vote. Advance vote is okay by 2012. They know there's the big problem, so they try to correct it, and they did. They did mean the election commission in those days. But then in 2012, there were some complaints about waxing the voting cards. You got to use a pen to tick beside the candidate that you'd like to vote. But then when people start using the pen, they found some wax on the paper, the voting card, and they couldn't look. And then they keep on ticking and ticking, and then there was a torn ballot card, and it's become invalid. So that happened in Komu and a few other townships south of Yangon, maybe somewhere else too. But then when the opposition party made a claim, the election commission came back with something, okay, this is nonsense. We have checked everything. There's no waxing at all, blah, blah, blah. But even then, the NLD won in almost every constituency. So that was not a big issue, the waxing, because they won. But now we have seen this kind of like a lot of problems with the voter list on the online version, the physical version, that need to be keep on changing. The UC keep on changing the list, and then there are more names, and then maybe less name in the constituency, and then there are names of the people who passed away 3 years ago. I think that's. I think one of this is that the technical problem, because they haven't trained the grassroots level election officials, or maybe like he said, just there may be some volunteers who are not really trained about it, and again that may be because what kind of database that the UEC use for this election? Is it the one from the General Administration Department, or is it the one from the Ministry of Immigration with the census, or what? So, basing on what we have seen so far, looks like the UEC take the data from the GAD, the General Administration Department. So, they keep the list of the residents in each township, but then that may be changing. People move from one living quarter to another, one township to another, and that may have caused a problem. Or maybe just simply the inefficient officials at different levels. That could be a big issue. But then, let's say, I mean, we've got to be frank. The majority of the people are hoping that the NLD may win. And if they win, they'll forget about those abnormalities.
Well, I guess when it comes to the voter list, I think if everything goes ahead as people are hoping, and as you said, people kind of forget about it, it will give the UEC room to be able to update these voter lists and modernise the way that they're collected. So I don't think that necessarily is completely the fault of the UEC, because then you've got other concerns of other people who are involved in preparing these lists. So I think that falls back on the people. So if people are moving, they should re-register where they are if they intend on living there. But one thing that could be, one idea from the government that could be initiated is to alert people that it is important to alert your local area when you do move there, or if a partner dies, you have to register that. And so providing that the people on one side do what they are supposed to do by alerting the government, and they on the other end have an effective method of preparing all of this and taking note of what has happened, then I think both sides will, both sides need to complement each other. But I think a lack of awareness is from the government side of what's necessary in order to update these lists.
I think, at least for now, we don't know what is the exact number of voter list. We don't know exact number of the voter list, and I think it will take a few more days at least to know the exact voters turnout. So I think whatever it is, that is also an issue, because we are going into the election without knowing exact number of the voter list. So
yes, I think again we could learn a lot from this process to improve in further process. There may be some by-election. There will be, of course, in 2020 there will be a big election coming up. So there will definitely be some by-elections coming up. So the UEC and the people, the voters and the public then should learn. Okay, let's take a break.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we do have some more stories coming from all these all over the places, especially from some interesting place like last show, where the vice president is contesting, and of course the Kombu, which is the big focal point for most of the journalists, because of Aung San Suu Kyi is contesting that. So the report said that she is leading in Kombu. Yeah. But I think I do want to advise my friends and colleagues all over the country that because individual voting stations may come with their own individual figure. For example, like, hey, in this particular voting station, she had 165 vote against 34 for the other guy, etc. That is a fact. But then don't forget that this is not the final fact, because you need just one single polling station, and then they need to be added up with all the rest of the polling station in that constituency. So the final figure may be quite late, maybe from individual vote counts are coming. And then in some places, Kombu is quite okay because it's not just south of Yangon, but even then there may be some sort of the issue about getting all the results to the township office of UEC and come up with an announcement or the final number. And in some places, the traveling may be an issue. Like a small township, a small village, the vote counting is done, but then that needs to be carried over to the township. That may take maybe an hour, a couple of hours, we don't know. So people are getting excited about all the news that are coming in, but be careful and be aware that these are not the final numbers, but that these are from individual voting stations.
Yes, yeah. Of course, there is a sort of a big political message. If the vice president is trailing behind NLD,
trailing behind
after
the NLD candidate one and a half hour of vote counting.
Who is not quite, NLD candidate is not quite that known in the area comparing with the vice president. So that is the case, but I agree. These are sort of trend or signals coming up.
Data is coming up.
With political parties counting the voting process themselves or announcing it through the political parties seems a bit irresponsible to an extent, because that is it's a good way to disenfranchise those who have voted. So I think like a good reliance should be placed on the UEC or rely on the UEC to announce these results, because if a lot of followers are following just one particular party and they release all this, and then later, advance votes which have been
different outcomes
in the past could change the results of the poll, and that could upset a lot of people. So as you said, everybody needs to kind of take a step back and relax and just remember that it's going to take a long time before we know. I think, like with seats with Aung San Suu Kyi and Kombu, I think they're very safe. Or in high-ranking USDP members where they've been able to do a lot of good, whether it's above the board or below the board, they're safe seats, and that's we know that, and that's politics around the world. There's always going to be safe seats for very high profiles.
People.
But with the vice president last year, I guess maybe that could be a trend. Maybe we might see a lot of high-profile people losing their seats.
And also, I think the people, in my opinion, the people are expecting change, whatever it is. I just got a call from my mother while we were on break, and she said she heard that NLD has won. I think that is
in one single voting station, yes, but we've got to wait for the council.
So I told her, no,
not yet.
Just still counting. But I think many people are expecting that NLD to win. In my opinion,
I guess. Then I've seen some pictures that come in, again through the social media, that now there's a huge crowd in front of the headquarters of the NLD.
Yes, with LED screen
LED screens and everything. So people may be shouting when they come up with it. Sometimes they come with this kind of like partial information about a constituency. Hey, we win in 4 stations or 10 stations. But anyway, people may be shouting jubilantly, etc. But then again, the people should be aware, and the party, like you're correct, should be really aware of the process of vote counting, and then they shouldn't come up with these kind of like under these, not really when they're sure that the Aung San Suu Kyi will win in Congo, but then there may be some places where the result may be quite tight, the competition may be quite tight, and then they got to be careful in coming with these kind of announcement and results. But do we have any report from there is one UEC resource center in Yangon, in
Yeah.
Thailand State. Do we have any information
No,
coming
no,
in?
not yet. It is still showing about the vote counting, showing of the vote counting from different places through Skynet. But you know, we did the opinion poll just 1 week before the election that we did together with Mahdiga Center in Malaysia and the Myanmar Resource Center in Myanmar, that is local survey group. We did it. One result that we got through the opinion poll is 48% of the people have voted, are going to vote for NLD, and 26% of the people are going to vote USDP. I think yes, NLD is likely to emerge as a winner, but of course the question is whether it will form the government or not. So
Yeah.
that is a separate question. But yes, people are voting for NLD. A lot of people, many
More
people
people are
more
voting
people
for
are
the
voting for
NLD
NLD,
than, for
and we
the-
just need to confirm this with what the results coming in next few hours.
It's with opinion polls are quite interesting as well, because it also said that 14% who participated in that opinion poll did not announce who they would vote for.
Yeah.
So I mean that could go either way. So we could see the NLD winning over the higher mark, or they could, like most people have hoped for or foreseen, that the NLD will win a landslide, as I'm sure Dorsu is hoping for. So there is the potential for that to happen. I think a lot of people were just, quite
There's
unsure.
some like swing votes.
Yeah.
Voters will call for this swinging. Yeah.
But like
could happen
in
too.
England, in their last general elections, that there was an opinion poll that was stating that the Labour government were going to beat the current Tory or Conservative government, and that was reflected in the opinion polls. But England and Myanmar have the same voting process, which is first past the post, and that can manipulate, or not manipulate, sorry, it can really kind of sway the results of an opinion poll. So even though the NLD have been, in this opinion poll, been given a clear running, and they could win a large percentage of the vote, but they still might lose a large share of what was said in the opinion poll simply through the voting process.
Yeah, that could happen. Yeah. Again, but I'm still quite satisfied that the day has been quite quiet and peaceful at the vote counting process, because there is another possibility. There had been another possibility that there may be some rowdy crew storming into a voting station, whatever. But that's just a possibility. Some are pessimistic have predicted, but then that doesn't happen now.
No,
all
at
of
least so far now,
the
for
pictures
now.
that we're seeing on the television screens from several channels, that seems to be the vote counting process is quite peaceful, and people are trying to restrain themselves, whatever the result is coming out from that particular station. So I think that's another positive thing, and that should be another congratulations for the voters and the people in each community. They are watching them very, very calmly and waiting for the results. There doesn't seem to be any chaotic things in any community. So that's another plus, and another congratulations to the voters and the people of Myanmar.
As of now, can we predict the winners?
Yeah, you know what? We've been predicting, making this kind of prediction came for quite some time, maybe weeks, that, okay, the NLD may come out as a winner. In the election, I could say yes, but the problem or the issue is that, like we have been discussed, they need at least 330 seats in both houses to form a government, and the other party, the USDP, need only half of that amount of seats. And then there's another possibility is that none of the leading party, the opposition or the winning party, got that kind of outright majority, and there's quite a sizable portion of the seats go to the ethnic parties. That could happen too. And we do see in some places, people, I think this is one of the local newspapers came up with some stories about, in a particular area, they have this kind of like exit polling. And then maybe it's just a number is not big, maybe somewhere around 1,700. Of course, the NLD is leading. But then there are some ethnic party which have much comparable votes like the USDP. Let's say the NLD was something like out of 1,700, they got something like 1,300. The USDP maybe 500, and the other one, like the ethnic party, they got something like 400, 500. So that could become again a decisive factor. How much votes the ethnic parties are getting? How many seats are they going to get?
So the ethnic party can go along with USDP.
Or
in
I mean, I
some
think
cases.
in some cases they may swing. Like for example, there's only two parties from the ethnic area. One from the Rakhine and one from the Shan State that pledges allegiance or alliance towards the NLD. But then the rest, there are dozens of ethnic parties, also big and small. So we haven't got any information from those parties that in which direction they're going. They may go this way, that way. We don't know yet. So that may be interesting. And then I think we should start looking for the result from, again, the last show is a capital of northern Shan State, but there are a few ethnic parties contesting in that particular constituency.
Apart from Shan parties, no?
Yeah, because there is this Usai Maukan, the vice president from the USDP, he is contesting there. The one from the NLD, Utong Shui, is contesting there. And there are a couple others ethnic parties in the same constituency. So we have to watch out for those.
Our reporter at the counting place, she is just sending them message that now all the countings is Utong Shui, Utong Shui, Utong Shui. So quite
the NLD candidate, yeah.
Yeah, that is the NLD candidate getting the votes. So
is she going around, or is she just watching one single station?
She's at the spot.
One station.
Yeah, at one station, of
Yeah.
course, at one station. Yes, yeah. But she's getting the Utong Shui, Utong Shui, Utong Shui.
She's